Hello, this is Dr. Baxter with Baxter Health Center. Thank you for joining me today for our webinar on hormones and neurotransmitters. This is a very complicated and very exciting topic that I think will interest many of my patients, as it's such a crucial part of maintaining optimal health. Hormone and neurotransmitter balance are prerequisites for optimal physical, mental, and emotional health. How we feel physically, mentally, and emotionally affect much more than just how we feel. They affect who we are and who we are capable of becoming. But to understand the real context of today's presentation, I want to take a look at what health is. Well, health consists of a poised mind housed in the body of clean habits, stabilized nerve energies, and balanced chemical function. Note, health is not just the absence of symptoms. It's a state of optimal physical, mental, and emotional function. A lot of people might not have any symptoms, but they could be far from healthy. And that's the big idea we want to get across today. How to optimize health so that you're truly in a state of health and not just an absence of disease. Well, why is health so important to us? I mean, that kind of seems like an obvious desire to be healthy, but being healthy enables us to be our best self, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Not just so that we don't have to suffer with aches and pains and feeling bad, but it enables us to be all that we can be. Sounds a little trite, I know, but there's a lot of truth to it. Being healthy is even more than having optimal physical health. It means we're more able to fully express all of our potential so that we can create the life of our dreams, creating a better life not only for ourselves, but for our family, friends, and potentially many others as well. So we're talking here not just of optimal physical health, but optimal mental, emotional, and spiritual health as well. Well, to do that, we need to have a healthy mind and emotions. And that requires that we have more healthy emotions than unhealthy emotions. So what are some of the healthy emotions? Well, friendship, loyalty, generosity, love, kindness, confidence, understanding, and faith, as opposed to unhealthy emotions such as betrayal, anger, regret, greed, resentment, guilt, hate, fear. I'm sure we all know people that dominate in what we'd say healthy emotions or unhealthy emotions. And it may well be that unhealthy emotions dominate in these people because of hormone and neurotransmitter imbalances. And some of the behaviors we have are more human or humane than others. So what is it about those that we might consider more enlightened behaviors that best communicate our humanity? Or another way of looking at it is, what is it about our minds that make us human? Our minds also make us capable of creating many wonderful things. We can create buildings. We can create machinery that changes our environment to heat it or cool it to keep us more comfortable. We can create drugs that treat life-threatening conditions. We can create nutrients that can heal us, or vehicles that can transport us. A healthy mind can be creative, enabling us to create vehicles that can transport telescopes so we can see the farthest reaches of outer space in an attempt to understand our universe, our world, and perhaps even ourselves a little better. We can create fashion and music. Being the creator of this slideshow allowed me to choose a photograph of my beautiful daughter for this slide. Humans can create, at least those of us with artistic talent, can create art that reflect the beauty that God creates for us all around us. And for those of us who aren't so creative, we can still appreciate the beauty found in nature or the beauty that God creates all around us. So when we're at our best, we reflect the truth, beauty, and goodness we find all around us. And we reflect that goodness, truth, and beauty as morals, ethics, and values in our relationships with others. But what is it that enables some of us more than others to express those more noble qualities? Well, let's take a look at the brain. In this slide, the figure on the left shows the brain of a reptile. The next one to the right shows a mammal's brain. And the next one shows a brain of a human. The dark area is called the neocortex. There's a particular part of the neocortex called the frontal lobe. You'll see it highlighted here in purple. That's where all of our higher thought processes occur. And when we compare the human frontal lobe with that of other animals, we'll find we have much more of a frontal lobe. A rat has just a tiny little dot, that little yellow dot you see on the rat's brain. A cat has a little bit more, a chimpanzee a fair amount more, but nothing to compare with the frontal lobe of a human being. So what's so special about the frontal lobe? Well, that's where all of our higher thought processes occur. It's where we are aware that we are aware. It's where reason and logic reside. It's also where all of our more enlightened and creative thoughts originate. It's where our enlightened thinking processes come from. Goals, ambitions, desires, plans for the future, visualization, creativity, values, morals, ethics, integrity, honesty, ideals, all these things come from the frontal lobes. What about the unenlightened thoughts and feelings? Feelings like betrayal, anger, regret, greed, resentment, hate, and fear. Where do they come from? They come from our fear-based brain, not from the frontal lobes. All of our unenlightened thoughts and feelings come from the more primitive limbic system. It's also called our survival brain. It's based on fear, and it functions merely to react and respond to our environment, and it attempts to minimize pain and discomfort and minimize our fear of pain and discomfort. Well, the limbic system is not part of the frontal lobe. It's our reactive, responsive survival brain. It's primitive, and it's separated distinctly from where our more enlightened thoughts and feelings come from the frontal lobes. Rather than operating in a reactionary mode, our frontal lobes act instead in a creative mode. And that's where healthy individuals spend most of their time. Well, it's through using our frontal lobes to the fullest extent that we are able to create the life of our dreams. That kind of a life can't be enjoyed by merely reacting and responding to the environment around us. It can only be created by engaging in thoughts and actions that are consistent with our highest ideals and values. And our ideals and values reside in our frontal lobes. So how do we do that? Well, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist back in the previous century who referred to this more aware creative state as a state of self-actualization. Now, he stated that you can't get to that state until you first handle your need for your basic survival. And these survival needs include food, water, clothing, shelter, and safety. I think he also included sex in there as well as a basic need. These items are all attended to by the limbic system of our brain. It's only after these basic survival requirements are met that we are truly capable of more enlightened function. So safety is dependent upon our health, and health is comprised of a poised mind, housed in a body of clean habits, stabilized nerve energies, and balanced chemical function. Well, you can see how if you're deficient in food and water, clothing, shelter, or safety, you're in survival mode, and you can't think about the things that you want to create in your life. You need to first handle the basic needs. Well, what is a poised mind? Poised means without conflict. One might also refer to conflicts as stresses. What stresses us the most? Is it financial stress or relationship with others? Research shows that what stresses us the most is our relationship with ourselves. When we engage in thoughts and actions that are not in harmony with our highest values, that creates more stress than anything else. And where do our highest values reside? They reside in the frontal lobes of our brain. There's an excellent book called The Four Agreements, written by the author Don Miguel Ruiz. It's based on the ancient Toltec religion, which is based upon 4 agreements. And those agreements are: be impeccable with your word, say what you mean and mean what you say, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And when I read that book, I realized that if I abided by those 4 agreements, that would probably eliminate 95% of the stress in my life. And I suggest you read the book and attend to those 4 agreements yourself. And I think you'll find that your stress levels greatly decrease. If you said what you meant and meant what you said, if you didn't take things personally when someone does something that maybe upsets you, if you don't make assumptions that people are going to do what they say they're going to do, and if you always do your best, doesn't mean you have to be perfect, just do your best, then I think you'll find you have a lot less stress. Well, why is minimizing stress so important? Because stress increases the level of stress hormones, including a primary stress hormone called cortisol. And cortisol interferes with the balance of most hormones and neurotransmitters. Bet you were wondering when I was going to get back to our topic of hormones and neurotransmitters. And here's the segue. Neurotransmitters are the chemicals that regulate our mood, emotions, and cognitive function. It's neurotransmitter balance that enables us to connect with the frontal lobes of our brains. So if we don't have hormone balance, then we don't have neurotransmitter balance. If we don't have neurotransmitter balance, we can't connect with the frontal lobes of our brain. If we can't connect with the frontal lobes of our brain, we're in a reactive, responsive survival mode. And we just try to get by from one day to the next. And that's not a very good way to live your life. I recommend meditation to all my patients, 20 minutes twice a day. Now this says 20 minutes a day. I need to change this slide actually, but it's actually 20 minutes twice a day. I might settle for 20 minutes once a day, but we really find the best results from 20 minutes twice a day, preferably in the morning and in the evening. There are many different ways to meditate, but all focus on one thing or nothingness. One of the best forms of meditation is called contemplative prayer. You can do some internet research on this and find more information, or I can provide you with that information here at the office. But first you find a quiet, comfortable place. You sit or lie down. You quiet the mind, and to help with that, breathe deeply, deep abdominal breathing. Not up in the chest, but down in your belly, making your belly go up and down. Then you focus on the feeling of God's presence. When you notice your mind wandering, gently bring it back to the feeling of God's presence by silently speaking a word that to you symbolizes God's presence. That word might be God, might be Father or Mother or Earth Mother Spirit or peace or love. Whatever word you want to use is fine, as long as that word to you symbolizes experiencing God's presence. Regular meditation enhances the balance of neurotransmitters, the chemicals that control your mood, emotions, and brain function. With neurotransmitters, we can connect optimally with the frontal lobes of our brain. Without these neurotransmitters, we can't connect with that part of our brain, and we retreat instead to the primitive, fear-based, reactive, responsive limbic brain, which operates only in survival mode. And when a person is operating in survival mode, they often describe themselves as feeling like they've lost themselves. They no longer make decisions based upon what they truly desire and value. They make their choices based solely on trying to feel a little bit better or a little less miserable for the moment, without regard to consequences, oftentimes, and without regard for what they truly value. And that, my friend, is a recipe for disaster. Living a life in survival mode puts you in a place where you're much more likely to make poor choices. Basing your choices, thoughts, and actions on how you feel rather than what you value. And those types of decisions usually lead to bad outcomes, which causes more stress, which increases stress hormones, which interfere with hormones and neurotransmitter balance, which makes it even more difficult to make good choices, which results in even worse choices and more stress from the worst outcomes from those choices until your life eventually falls apart. So how can all that be avoided? Well, you have to foster neurotransmitter balance. And you do that by choosing thoughts and actions based upon your highest values. Not based on how you feel, but based on what you value. And you also need to make healthy choices to foster hormonal balance, because by and large, it's the balance of hormones in your body that determine the balance of neurotransmitters. Hormone balance is affected by age, it's affected by body composition, by diet and lifestyle choices, by environmental toxins, and by stress. So let's take a look at how we can deal with each of these things. What are some of the signs of hormonal and neurotransmitter imbalance? Well, feelings like depression, sadness, fatigue, lethargy or laziness, anxiety, mood swings, mental fogginess, poor memory, cravings for certain foods and drugs can be a sign as well. And there are many, many other signs of hormone and neurotransmitter imbalance. Well, hormonal and neurotransmitter balance is greatly dependent upon healthy living. Poised mind, clean habits, exercise and proper hygiene, stabilized nerve energies, which is chiropractic care, and balancing chemical function, maximizing good nutrition and minimizing exposure to toxins. Hormonal balance, particularly sex hormone balance, is particularly important for men and women. Men can develop andropause due to decline in testosterone, just as women go through menopause due to their declining hormones. Most women don't realize that 10 years before menopause usually starts, or perimenopause starts, progesterone starts declining at around age 35. And that can cause massive changes in mood, emotions, and in physical health as well. Estrogen starts declining around the age of 45 in many women. And it's a balance between estrogen and progesterone that determines your level of health, by and large. So these imbalances between estrogen and progesterone can occur many years before menopause is likely to begin, especially since progesterone starts declining around the age of 35. Other hormones can also become imbalanced in women, including testosterone, and in both men and women, DHEA, thyroid, and adrenal hormones. Hormonal balance is also essential to reduce the risk of many forms of cancer in both men and women. Now, the way I test these hormones in my office is with saliva testing rather than blood testing. It gives us much more thorough, comprehensive, complete information that just isn't available in most blood tests. Now, there are 3 different types of depression that are associated with 3 different neurotransmitter imbalances. The sadness type of depression, which is what we think of most often, is usually due to serotonin deficiency. The lack of motivation or fatigue type of depression from dopamine deficiency, and the anxiety type of depression is due to an imbalance between GABA and glutamate, which isn't related to monosodium glutamate. Cognitive or brain function, the ability of our brain to think properly, is affected by various factors. There's a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which is important to have in adequate amounts. An acetylcholine deficiency can make memory very, very challenging. Choline, one of the best sources of it, is in egg yolks. So for people who think that eggs are unhealthy for them, they're depriving themselves of one of the few natural sources of this absolutely essential nutrient for the brain. Type 3 diabetes is also called Alzheimer's disease. It's caused by the same things that cause regular diabetes, overindulgence in carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates primarily, in inadequate omega-3 fatty acids. And of course, Alzheimer's disease leads to cognitive decline. Leaky brain syndrome can result from nutritional deficiencies, B12, folate, B6, vitamin D, etc. Progesterone deficiency can also result in cognitive decline. One of the leading causes of early onset senile dementia in women is low progesterone levels. And keep in mind, those levels start declining in most women around the age of 35. And we can also have cognitive decline as a result of gluten intolerance. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and oats, and it targets the brain even more than the gastrointestinal tract. Many people that have no idea they're gluten intolerant are gluten intolerant, and their brain is suffering because of it. Fortunately, there are good tests for that now. We can identify patients with this problem quite easily. Well, what are some of the effects of neurotransmitter imbalance in addition to the different forms of depression we talked about earlier and decreased cognitive decline? Well, when your feelings change, your perception of realities change. So someone who's sad, depressed, lacking energy, or feeling anxiety won't be capable of making wise choices as consistently as someone that enjoys neurotransmitter balance. And the degree to which you experience these types of imbalances, the degree to which you can't fully express your personality or your spirit. And it's the balance of hormones and neurotransmitters that not only affects how you feel, it determines who you are. So how do you optimize your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health? Well, you need to engage in thoughts and actions that are consistent with your highest values. Live in the creative mode rather than the reactive responsive mode as much as possible. Certainly there are things we need to do that are the result of reacting and responding to the environment around us. Bills need to be paid. We need to wake up to the alarm clock. We need to go to work. Those are reactive responsive type things. But we need to try to spend as much time as possible in the creative mode. Looking at your dreams, goals, desires, what you want to create for yourself and your family and your future. You want to employ the 4 agreements as well as other spiritual values in relationships with others. You want to minimize other sources of stress. Be attentive to healthy diet and lifestyle choices. And have your hormonal balance periodically assessed. And as far as the adrenal and sex hormones are concerned, that needs to be done with salivary testing, whereas thyroid hormone testing can be done with blood tests. And then once we identify imbalances in these sex hormones, adrenal hormones or thyroid hormones, sometimes those imbalances can be corrected just with diet and lifestyle changes. Sometimes it requires supplementation with natural bioidentical hormones. They're safe, they're natural, and they work amazingly well in restoring people to who they truly are and helping them no longer feel like they've lost themselves. I see this time and time again in the patients that I treat, and it's one of the most gratifying parts of my practice. Well, thank you very much for joining me today for this interesting and challenging topic. If you, your friends, or loved ones have what appear to be symptoms of hormonal or neurotransmitter imbalance, please come see me. I'm very good at helping to identify the nature and source of these problems and correcting them with patients. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. Look forward to our next webinar together. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.